to Resilience Plus Rise, the space where we excavate the extraordinary from the heart of challenge. I'm your host, Thomas Carrier, and if you're feeling the pull towards a deeper purpose, a more impactful legacy beyond the peaks that you have already conquered, you're in the right space. Just because just like 26.2 transformative miles I explore in my book, life's most significant chapters or milestones, as I call it in this book, often begin when we dare to redefine our finish line. And yes, this is available to buy, most of the major platforms. Today's guest, how do I say, in the dynamic landscape of organizational leadership and public safety, if there is a person who's in the goals of cultivating a culture where inclusivity is not just a buzzword but a lived reality, not only seeking to empower your teams but also to overcome the challenges and also to soar, then today's podcast, be prepared to be inspired. Welcome to the podcast where decades of frontline experience meets the cutting edge leadership insight. Today, I have the distinct honor of speaking with Alma Burke, the president and CEO of Burke Consulting Group. With remarkable 30 years of career in law enforcement, a master in public administration, focused on organizational leadership, and above all, a deep seated commitment to fostering a positive change. Alma's superpower lies in her ability to ignite the transformation from the ground up. So, without wasting much time, Alma, welcome to Resilience Plus Rise.
Well, Thomas, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I am so excited to be here with you today. And yeah, if I can share something that, will change or help someone who's out there, with all of the challenges and complexities of the world, I hope I can contribute.
Okay, so as I mentioned, at some point, I do not come with any script. And just I've got a few notes regarding your background, and that's what I was going through or just memorizing it. When you look back, when you got into this world, forget about even into this world, how did you get into law enforcement? And from law enforcement, how did you get into creating a consulting group that would create a momentous difference in corporate level or in public administration, wherein you're currently honing your skills to be?
Well, first and foremost, I think I can share that I've heard this across uh, the country in my last couple of years of traveling and doing consulting and teaching is that we all have different experiences when we join the profession. For me, it was clearly another police officer, someone who took me under their wings at a very, very young age, inspiring me to be in a place to be committed of service. I was getting in a bit of trouble as a kid. I was always defending my brothers, defending anyone who was mistreated. It seemed like I had that spirit of service right from the get-go for me. And it was just what was wrong and was right. And it just seemed to just sit in my space, and it lit a fire in me to be in a profession that gives back and it helps people through life. And I joined the Police Explorer program at 16 years old. So I've been in the business since then. And of course, I'm only 25. And so, just a little bit of, so, you know,
I love that. Okay.
I mean, if you look at the fact that I feel 25 because all of those years went by so fast, because when you are giving and honoring that space of your purpose, you everything just seems easier, right? It just seems like I'm doing the right job. I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. I can't believe that, yes, there's so many complexities to it, but knowing that every time you put on that uniform and you answer that radio call, someone's expecting you to solve their worst day, right? And having a commitment to that.
Okay, let me just interrupt you on this one. The
Mhm.
way you sounded, it seems to be like one of those classic jobs that anybody would want to jump in. Law enforcement, at least from my perception, it is not an easy job.
No.
There is a lot online. Forget, I mean, your health and your life is a different spectrum. But overall, when you look at for whether it is the people who are joining in, both
Mhm.
male, female, whoever it is, how was it for you?
Well, you hit it on a couple of spots where it is challenging. Of course, it's challenging. Number one, you're going from a call to call, not knowing that it might be your last day at work, that it might be your last space, that as you're solving the world's problems, you're challenged by who you are and what you represent, right? You're still first line of government. So when you go out and you do this and you're helping people, not everyone's going to want you to be there, right? And secondly, it's always the bureaucracy that comes along with it as well, other types of government and other people within your scope, right? Within your department that pose a challenge for you just because you're a woman, you're a woman of color, they have their own biases. It's like we recruit from the human society, right? So we all come flawed, and understanding that those challenges, especially in my career, the majority of them didn't always come from suspects. It came from my own people at times, right? And it's because sometimes doing the right thing becomes harder for some folks. So understanding that, you have to know who you are, have a sense of integrity, have a sense of empowerment, and knowing that every single day that you go, it is going to be challenging, but you can overcome it and you can become stronger as a result of it.
So, what were the steps that you used during that time? Of course, now the history has changed. It has changed quite a bit for you going coming further in life. But what were the steps you used during that time, whether you were a rookie or whether you came to a space wherein you were the mid career type, wherein you had already taken on to leading people who be saying yes to you, but also saying no to you from another point of view or give you. So, what were the elements that you use to rise above those challenges? Simple elements that gave you the strength or the spine to forge ahead. And most importantly, again, when I'm talking about law enforcement, it's having not really, as you mentioned, it's not about the people around whom we are going to save their day or their life, but also the people around your own environment that you have to be leading them, that they get to believe in you.
Yeah, there's so much that you just said. You almost answered a lot of the questions yourself. But the reality of it is, when you're younger, you have such, in my opinion, I know I had so much more resilience.
Mhm.
I was able to tell myself, is this the right thing that I'm doing? And as police officers, we always look at, is this ethical, moral, or illegal, right? And if it went past, if you start looking at it from those perspectives and say, okay, it's not illegal, it's not unethical, it's not immoral, but this is something else, right? And being able to, as a leader, no matter what age or portion of your or at what stage in your career you are, you come with some, and I know I did, came with some very strong moral values and some very strong ethical values. And I started to learn so much. I remember the saying of, like, just because 5 people say that it's wrong, it's not wrong. You might be the one person who's actually the one that stands up and actually sets the tone for a culture of inclusivity, a culture of care, a culture of being kind to each other, a culture of not being gossipy, a culture of like, hey, why are we here? Let's go back to our why. Why are we doing this? So at each stage in my career, I would always go back to my why. And when I went back to my why, it reassured me that I was in the right space, because I would get this surge of energy saying, I've got to go back in there, good, bad, or indifferent, and I've got to smile, and I've got to do this job. And I have to do this job where people don't know that I'm hurting, that people don't know that the day before someone slammed the door in my face and said, no, you're not getting that next opportunity or in that job because you weren't part of the boys club, or you're not going to get that, you know, next position because you didn't sleep with the right people, or you weren't, you know, part of that, you know, culture of, okay, if you go this way and you hang out with these people, then guess what, you'll get that next position. Well, I wanted to get that next position based on my work ethic and my morals and my ethical values, and knowing that you have to stand on that and continue to do that regardless of what anyone says about you. And I think that's the hardest aspect, is that there's a lot of white noise your entire career.
Mhm.
But when you're spiritually centered and you're spiritually knowing that you are doing the right thing, and the right thing is telling the truth, it's your truth, it's your space. How is this going to benefit others, not just you? And knowing that, how can you continue to pursue that? Because I tell people that if you said you wanted to be a cop and you're not a cop right now, I tell people that you can never extinguish that fire that's in your heart about the job that you're supposed to be doing. And I know that right from the very beginning, I knew that that fire was lit in my heart, and giving and helping people, that it was such an easy transition to launching a company in that same purpose of
Mhm.
helping others, of giving back, of still being engaged with police officers, looking at wellness programs. Why is suicide the number one, incident that happens to us, rather than getting shot by a suspect? We're now hurting ourselves versus being able to help others. Why is that happening? I love being in that space of now turning around and sharing experiences to help others overcome and survive their careers in a healthy and positive way, not only for themselves but for their families.
Wow.
Yeah.
So thanks for that. So here, what it was to, I mean, what I heard, but it goes back to one of the previous conversations I had, and this lady, of course, she was very much into the point of giving back, etc. And she was a model, etc. But then she was also had the same values about being kind and standing for the truth, etc. When she mentioned at times being kind is not exactly a valuable asset. People misjudge it and they feel that I can take advantage of that element. And especially I can see, I mean, I can sense about in your type of line that would have been, especially as you mentioned, is that in a boy scout, as you call it, as, or the male dominated area wherein you're kind, people would see it as "Hmm, we can use it. And but you mentioned it so comfortable that, yeah, I had to stay strong. I had to be having not only the morality but also the spirituality of who I was and the passion to dwell with. So what were the elements over there wherein if you had to say stop but still being strong, how did you manage that type? And it would have not been just once or twice. It as what I could just understand from your conversation, it has been right from the time you put on the blue uniform and a cap. It would have been going on till a long time. So what was that?
So if you look at it in three steps, number one, being self-aware. You have to be self-aware of what's happening to you, what's happening around your environment. What is it that you're trying to solve? And more importantly, what is it that you can really control? And when you let go of the things that you can't control, you have a complete mind shift. And then number two is knowing what your values are, from the get-go. It's in every single company and organization I've ever been part of, they list their mission, vision, and values. We should have our own written values. Like, what are you willing to accept, right? What are you willing to, there's a line that you will not cross, right? There's a line that you'll say, when you get exhausted, what are you going to do to take care of yourself, right? And number three, you have to gain some survival skills. What is it that do you have a village? Do you have people that you can go to, right? Because without the people on your corner, you're not going to survive on your own. You have to build that together and be able to have someone you can call at 2 a.m. and be able to say, this is what I'm experiencing. How can you help me? Because the answer to me has always been yes, no matter who calls me. And I'm part of their village. They know that they're going to get someone who's going to listen. And number two, they're going to be able to provide support and guidance. And then three, carry them through this, because we're not alone in what we do in law enforcement. We're alone when we choose to be alone. When we choose to say we're so strong that we could do it all on. No, that is absolutely not true. We can't. We have to rely on each other. We have to find those people that have commonality. I know that you interviewed a good friend of mine, Sasha, powerful, right? From the very beginning, creating those values together of the sisterhood and having each other's back and not being part of any sort of rumor mill. And I don't want to talk about other people, the idea that smart people really do talk about ideas and not people, right?
Yes, of course.
Yes. So finding someone in your corner that feels the same way, right? That doesn't assume, that doesn't do, the added stuff. We have a saying in law enforcement, if you want people to know, you tell another cop, right? Because the information just flows so quickly
Wow.
and it's sad, right? And it's
You
sad.
would think that that's one of the most safest places that you can tell another fellow cop that, because that's what it's all about, the integrity and
And let me,
trust
yeah,
for one another.
and let me clarify, when it comes to us handling cases and being professional, yes, 100%. But when it comes to us,
Okay.
us, that's not the same. That wasn't my experience. It was like, oh, if I want everybody to know, I might as well share it in this room, right? But if I really wanted to be confidential, then I need to share it with someone outside of my space, right? And that's just the truth. That's what I experienced for me. Maybe other people have had other experiences, but in order to build the resilience that I needed to learn that I needed to be private. I needed to learn that I needed to just have a smaller, very small group of individuals that I could share and actually be open and be vulnerable. There's so many things people don't know about me, but there's assumptions, right? And so whenever I kind of clear things, I'm like, oh, do you know my brother's names? No. Did you know my younger brother was autistic? Did you know, they don't know any of those things, right? Because sometimes people just don't wait to listen and really want to get to know people. Sometimes people just go from, what can you do for me? How do I need to know you? What can you do for me? But when it comes to all the resilience levels, is understanding, number one, who you are. Number two, where do you want to go? And number three, for me, is who am I going to help? Who am I going to help? How is my journey going to help the next person? Because it's not going to be in vain that I've been through a roller coaster ride and a really bumpy road without me being able to give back and say, these are the lessons I learned. Let me share them with you. And more importantly, let me share 'em with those that are genuinely want to help people, that are in that value system that I so honor.
So here it has a beautiful segue to the next question is that you had mentioned about vulnerability. You had mentioned about mental health. You mentioned to a point about people, in fact, law enforcement people committing suicides. In fact, I was under the impression it was a dentist who had the worst of the suicide rates, especially in a lot of other parts of the. But in fact, now it is becoming more clear because I've been talking to military veterans also, where the
Mhm.
rates are very high. I have been also talking to law enforcement, and that resonance is getting louder and clearer also. I believe is that our purpose, from what I have seen about Brook Consultancy, that y'all are there to provide a superior edge. It's not just about the company, but the wholeness of the company to a better level of understanding. So, the way I look at it is that our purpose, which I believe that's the purpose of having Brook Consultancy for a certain way, comes from our deepest of pains, or the light shines from our deepest of wounds. I'm paraphrasing Rumi. But
Mhm.
were there some elements that when you came to a point of time in your law enforcement, I mean, you had to take out your cap or your badge and you say, okay, let me get into something which is going to, because you have been saying the better good time and again, values. So, were there some incidents or some experience, or you knew that you were just a natural born leader that you had to show them the way?
No, I definitely will say I was not a what I would consider like a natural born leader. I fell on my face so many times in law enforcement, decisions that had to be made, opportunities that came across. I didn't always have, and still don't have all the answers. But what I did do was exactly what I talked about earlier: is like stepping out to meet people who I admired, who I looked up to, who I saw making decisions for their life that I could see myself doing. And in doing so, I landed in graduate school at the University of Southern California, where I met these extraordinary CEOs and leaders in different professions, folks that were just tremendously like instrumental in shaping me, because I was coming from a law enforcement world and they were coming from another external world, and they were more interested in what I was doing and I was more interested in what they were doing, because we had so much in common. We were all trying to make decisions for the greater good, right? So in doing that, I did a lot of self development, a lot of understanding as to, number one, how to communicate, how to lead with empathy and love and kindness. Like you mentioned earlier, kindness is seen as a weakness. I don't see it as a weakness. I see it as an opportunity to show other people that we can always start with kindness. Whatever happens afterwards, if you're going to end up being someone who's as we call in our profession, Adam Henry, like you're going to be that person. That's on you. It's not on me. I started off by giving to you. I started off by, wanting to help you. So all that self-development truly helped, because when I went back into my own organization, I ended up, being asked to lead 6 different like specialized units, right? Which is unheard of. It's unheard of. And I had been part of that tokenism. I'm like, well, we already have one female, so we don't need any more women, right? And I would always say, well, there's one of me. Well, I'm bringing another one, right? And so being able to understand that as a leader, how can I now use these newfound skills to bring them back into the profession, and then now mentor and guide others to do self-development, to become better leaders in law enforcement. And that's been the goal. So I didn't stop at a master's. I have a doctorate now in organizational change leadership. because of that, because I'm so passionate about making sure that we have the right people in the room. I have a lot of lived experience that I want to share. No offense to my academics, right? But there's some people that are only in academia, but never have stepped out of a classroom to actually lead in critical moments where a life is on the line or many lives are on the line. So I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to be in front of a full classroom to talk about those experiences, and more importantly, about how to take a journey of true leadership from that experience.
Again comes to the next question. Beautifully. Is that tell me more about Brook Consultancy. What are you all doing to make a difference to humanity?
Wow, I have to share that, the company came as a result of what we started off with. Was I was being asked to present and talk about employee wellness,
Mhm.
how we could prevent suicides in the workplace, how we can help families understand the work that we do, right? Both the officer understanding of the toll the job takes on us really early, and then secondly, having families be more part of that process so that they can see the warning signs, so that they can talk about all that. And it started off with doing those presentations and talking to people, and really landing in a space that I had no idea that I was going to be in. And that's how the company started, was being asked to do that. And then now it's grown in other aspects of even providing comprehensive like safety programs and workplace violence prevention and active shooter information, all of the things that encompass my career. I get to now pick like the top 5 and say, I want to be in this space because I absolutely, again, love sharing my experience, good, bad, and indifferent, but at least it's coming from a very genuine, authentic self of saying, I messed up. Like I messed up so many situations, in law enforcement. But one thing I did not mess up is I came right back in and I came right back at getting better. And we have a term in law enforcement, be better, not bitter, because we have to be able to accept feedback from our colleagues. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is, and something that I share with the young officers is, tell yourself you need to speak first about how you could have been better in any situation, because everything is a learning moment in law enforcement. Everything, that traffic stop, that domestic violence, that child endangerment, that person who's attempting to commit suicide, all of those are learning moments. No one has all the answers, but if we openly share that with each other and say, you know what, I don't have the answer, but I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to take in, your career will be so much easier versus you think you know everything. Stand by for the bumpy road. Stand by, because you do not know everything, and you will not learn everything in the time that you are a police officer throughout your entire career.
That was kind of my next question is that the learnings, and I know that you're, from what I just heard, is that yes, you are a lifelong learner. And so my next question was going to be to the listeners. And guys, I will be putting out Brooke's information in the comments below about how to contact her in case you need a need on what's the next steps to be done. Reach out to her team. They may not have all the answers, as she says, but she would be able to point you towards the direction that could be of a help to you. So the question over here is that to the listeners, what is a few of the suggestions that you have learned in this past 3 decades plus, both as a law enforcement senior officer, and in fact, your position was a very high position before when you just, if you just want the listeners to know, what would that be?
Assistant chief.
Yes, so you were talking up to the ex-assistant chief, and now you are a CEO of Brook Consultancy. So the learnings that you have come across, if there was few of the ones which you have learned, and which has made not only you strong but the people around you stronger, what are those suggestions?
Number one, not everyone's your friend, but everyone is your colleague, so be respectful.
Good to know.
Number two, I mentioned it earlier, debrief, debrief, debrief. Everything is a learning moment. Every moment that you experience where you didn't lose your life, stop saying you got lucky. You were prepared. You prepared yourself. And number three, don't forget that along the journey, there are some very powerful people in your life. That is your family, your kids, your mom, your dad, all of those. Don't forget to say thank you because you're not always in the best of moods when you see them.
Wow, that is deep. Because yes, I've heard. I've heard a lot of amazing people talk, and they also come with their own points. But these are very unique ones, and thank you so very much for that, Alma. So, guys, over here, what we just saw was a beautiful, though I would like to say, a short journey about mastering tactics, navigating the crisis to develop impactful leaders and championing uh, inclusivity. Alma's journey, from what we have just heard, has equipped her with a unique blend of expertise. And one of the words which was just resounding so beautifully loud and clear was kindness and empathy. The invaluable perspective of building on your high performance is not just left to your own self, but certain values that makes you better. Whether it's about unlocking the true potential within your own self or your organization, seeking into your own passion, how she has done, the expertise, the mission, as she says, as the companies put out the vision, mission, value statement. What's yours? Thank you so very much, Alma, for your space and time. This has been a beautiful journey. Thank you.
Thank you.